Hey, what's good everyone? Today I'm back with another video, and today we're going to be looking at the PULSAR versus LAMZU lineup, specifically their 4K lineups, their most up-to-date mice. Just as a disclaimer in the intro, all products are purchased. I won't have any affiliate links. Products I've tried are the X2H, the X2V2, X2V2 Mini, Thorn, Atlantis Mini, and the Atlantis. So to start off, we have the build quality. All the build quality on all the mice, PULSAR and LAMZU, they seem fine to me. No creaking or flexing, and what they both seem to be doing is using the PCB to some extent to prevent the flexing. As you can see on the PULSAR, the frame catches the PCB in the inside. You know, the sidewalls don't break in. It's a bit more obvious on the Thorn. As you can see, that's a very wide PCB when it seemingly doesn't even need to be that wide. You do get a bit of creak, but that's just the plastic settling in place. It's not as severe as something like the Defender V3 Faker Edition, which is just comical at this point. Finally, the LAMZU Atlantis. It doesn't seem to be doing it at the bottom, but if you can see, there's an under PCB, which presumably holds the side clicks, and that is flush to the wall. I can get a bit of creaking on the bottom because, like I said, it's not catching it at the bottom. But near the clicks, it won't actuate the side clicks, which is like the telltale sign of side flicks. So I guess we can go over the dongles. These are the appropriate dongles with the 4K for PULSAR. Now with PULSAR, the dongle does shine like a bright, obnoxious blue, but you can go ahead and turn that off. They have instructions for that, but the default is just a bright blue light. I would have liked to seen the battery indicator. That's something that Razer has done, Final Mouse. I can't think of anyone else. Zowie does it on their mouse, like directly on the mouse. You know, battery indication is kind of like the best implementation on the dongle or on the mouse in my opinion, because with wireless mice, that's always a concern you might have while playing. Especially with the LAMZU dongles being so large with no functionality at all. I mean, at least they have a nice rubber base at the bottom to stick to your table. But yeah, some functionality would have been nice to see. In comparison, this is the Razer 4K dongle, which again has that lone small LED, which gives you battery function if you choose it in the software, and this is the G Pro X2 dongle. So yeah, quite a bit of wasted real estate in my opinion from the LAMZU dongle, but it's solid, it's built well. And that has the large rubber base. Also, the orange one is kind of cool. It matches the Fnatic Thorn, so if you're a drip enthusiast like myself, that might be a deciding factor. Next, I'll go over the clicks. The clicks are good on both, or on all models of both brands. This is where it gets kind of confusing for LAMZU specifically, because the Atlantis and the Maya, the new Maya, which I haven't tried, use their mechanical switches. So that's all great, but the worry is that these will double click over time eventually because mechanical switches are always prone to failure. To what degree they will fail, I can't really tell you, but these are using Huano switches instead of those KL 8.0s, which are basically cursed at this point. So hopefully those will fare better. Now with these two mice, it comes into a much more interesting comparison because these are both using optical switches, optical implementations. In my opinion, the better opticals goes to PULSAR. Side clicks aren't as snappy here, and the right click does have a bit of like pre-creaking traveling thing. It's very silent, but it is a bit annoying. I don't know if the camera will capture it. The Thorn, they're a bit worse in my opinion, but it's kind of harder to make ergonomic clicks because the click heights are different, so I'll give them a pass. The clicks are still great on this, don't get me wrong, but they do still feel like distinctly like opticals, which isn't very good. Still, again, very sharp side clicks, good wheel. This one's a bit more tactile, which I prefer. All the middle clicks are fine. Overall, I do prefer the side buttons of the LAMZU models because they do come with that extra surface area, and they're just a bit snappier. Basically on the level of the Razer side buttons. PULSAR is a bit more dull, and I don't enjoy the pill shape of the side clicks. Overall, I think the Thorn also comes with a bit of inconsistency in the click feel. They feel kind of like grindy or inconsistent in the travel. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe a good analogy would be like an unlubed keyboard switch versus a lubed keyboard switch, but a bit more obvious. If you just look at the Death Adder V3 Faker Edition, at least, the optical clicks are just the best. You know, people are giving Razer a lot of flack for their clicks because they become mushy over time or something like that. That's something I haven't experienced. And this is a very old and used copy. The way you can tell is it's creaking like your mother's bed frame. Yeah, that's pretty bad, but hey, the clicks are still perfect. Adapting it over iterations over time pays off in the end because Razer's optical clicks here, even on an ergo mouse where the clicks are harder to make consistent, are better than both PULSAR and, I almost called it Fnatic, LAMZU's implementations. As for the coding, if I keep it short, the PULSAR is just S tier now. You know, you can't really argue. It's up there with Zowie, Vaxi, Logitech, Razer, at least on the Death Adder V3 Faker Edition. You could argue which of those in the S tier have the best coding, but in my opinion, they're just all on a tier where you can't really complain. As you can see, I'm not really using grips on this, which is kind of ironic because they're PULSAR grips and I don't use them on the PULSAR mice. That's because the LAMZU coding needs it way more than it does on the PULSAR mice. Especially this like charcoal black. I mentioned I tried the mini and I sold it off because it just didn't work with me. I have sweatier hands, so in a longer session, the grainy black coating, I could feel like sweat or like dust or like even dead skin maybe like building up on my fingertips. Sweaty hands and LAMZU black coating is just don't do it. The Fnatic Thorn is a bit better. It's like a smooth out coating, but you still want something rubberized in my opinion. And this is my favorite mouse from the bunch, but what's funny is that I was ready to put it pretty low on the list until I tried the Super Grips, which just saved the mouse for me. So ironically, I do recommend trying the PULSAR Super Grips on the LAMZU mice. The PULSAR grips, or the PULSAR coating doesn't really need grips. As for the skates, I'm kind of a third-party skate hater. If you ask me, I don't really care about, you know, swapping feet, except for some mice, you know. But for the most part, I think default skates get the job done. But in my opinion, the PULSAR, the skates gets the job done, whereas the LAMZU mice have pretty great feet. I'd say more so the Thorn, specifically the Thorn, and that's because they just did so much, right? You see all the different contact points, all the surface area, this gigantic donut sensoring. Whereas not so much on the Atlantis, but this just feels great. This just feels like you get so much control and freedom at the same time because you can tell by the way the skates look, the compound is clearish, which is probably a similar compound to something like the core pads or Tiger Ice. So yeah, in my opinion, the LAMZU Thorn, they perfected the skates on this thing. Performance and shape, like I said, the 3395, the Nordic MCU, and probably the default compact solution for 4K, they just perform the same. And people kind of argue like, yo, 4K is useless, don't really buy into all that, but I think it does do enough so that, you know, these are smaller brands and smaller brands come with a lower price, but their performance is now like matching or almost matching Razer and Logitech, who are known to be the best performers. This is just good for the companies and us. It just means more competition. You know, back in the day, if you're getting an off-brand mouse, you are getting off-brand performance, and now that's really not the case. So outside of performance, what's also going to affect performance is just the shape. So for my favorite shapes, you know, like I said, the Thorn is my pick. I just love the shape with the grips. Once I can get a grip on the shape, it just melts into your hand. It's very reminiscent of the Thorn, or excuse me, that Thorn is reminiscent of the AX, but I think it does a better job of the AX. The reason why is this thing feels clunky, the hump is very high, feeling, and this bottom lip on the bottom plate of the mouse, you can kind of feel it if you put your hand near that on the mouse. So it kind of feels like you're floating. Whereas on the Thorn, like I said, it kind of lowers everything. The triggers are lowered, the hump is lowered, the base plate doesn't come up as high, so you kind of feel more contact down there. Especially with the clicks, you can see the clicks do get a lot lower and less slope. So in my opinion, I just feel like I just have way more control with the Thorn shape. The Atlantis OG is my favorite symmetrical shape. You already know what the shape is. It's like the XM1. You either like the XM1 or you like the Atlantis, you pick one, you just buy it. I will have to say, if you get it for $80, the XM2WE is kind of a better purchase decision because you do get optical clicks, though they feel worse than the mechanical clicks here. You get a way better coating, you save some money, and yeah, that's basically it. But you are stuck at 1000 Hertz, but again, that doesn't matter too much as long as the implementation is good, which it is on the XM2. So this is kind of a hard sell, just basically if you want a bit lighter weight and the 4K solution. The X2H, I don't have it with me, but I did try it. I think it's way too clunky. People are saying it's like the ZA shape, but it's not. I have a ZA shell here. I think the reason why it works so well is with such a high hump is because the grip width is very narrow. As you can see on most mice, the ZA is still going to be a bit more narrow. So what this allows is you can kind of grip around the tall hump, right? Whereas with the X2H, the grip width is not reduced. So the high hump, you can't really get around it, which is why I think it just feels pretty clunky. Maybe the X2H mini is a better shape. And speaking of the mini, the X2 mini is my preference between the X2V2. You know, it's such a small mouse with a thinner grip width, and everything just kind of gets out the way where you can just do like a fingertip claw, or maybe even a bit of palm if your hand's smaller. The X2V2 is kind of similar, but it is a bit wider and the hump does get in your way a bit more. And I don't really like how triangular it is with the deep grooves in the finger clicks. You know, this is primarily something for fingertip grippers, which I'm not completely convinced on. Just me personally. It kind of feels like a normalized MZ1 shape, which I wasn't a fan of in the first place. For the X2 standard edition, I am leaning towards the mini. And the Atlantis mini, I was not a fan of. I think the right side comes up a bit too much when you try to claw it. You know, it's kind of clunky. I think the right back hump is a bit too angular when you try to claw that mouse, because it's just a scaled down Atlantis. It feels a bit weird. So overall, again, like I said, my pick is the Thorn with the PULSAR Super Grips. You do get the 4K dongle just for $99 US, whereas PULSAR you need to get the mouse at $99 and then you need to get the $20 dongle. In my opinion, it's just not worth it when you have this, and you can just get the PULSAR Super Grips to deal with the coding. So my advice to the brands is maybe PULSAR should try to include the dongle, or have that option at least, where LAMZU has the option with the charcoal black mice to include the dongle, and the Fnatic Thorn. Also cut the price a bit, because this combo for $120 is, you know, you're creeping up to Razer and Logitech prices, right? You're not there, but you're creeping up there, which is, I mean, the point of the small brands is to avoid that, right? You give a better shape, you give enough performance, and you lower the price down a bit. That's how you get competitive as a small brand. So you're kind of missing the mark there. Also, one more advice for PULSAR is just hurry up with the X-Lite V3. I'm trying to test that. You know, it probably would have beat the Thorn in my opinion if I had it for this video, but you know, I'm still waiting to this day. My advice for LAMZU, you know, just work on the optical clicks. I don't think you should have gone back to mechanical flicks for the Maya, because like I said, for the Razer, they've gone through 3 iterations of the optical clicks, and let's just be honest, they were trash, but now they're pretty good. And now they're the best opticals in the market. And when you kind of go from the Thorn with opticals to the Maya with no opticals, you're kind of just skipping a generation where you can work on how good your optical click feels. And the last thing is just make a good coding. Like, there's no reason why you can't match PULSAR in the coding. If it adds a bit of price, I mean, so be it. Maybe $5 or $10. I'd be happy with the coding on this. So yeah, that's basically it. That's my choice. Hopefully the X-Lite V3 comes fast enough where I can review it. And I'll let you guys know how that is. But for now, that's basically it.